I'm Hemant Mehta.
And I'm Jessica Limke.
And you're listening to the podcast for FriendlyAtheist.com. You can now listen to all of our episodes and see show notes at FriendlyAtheistPodcast.com.
By the way, we now have a merchandise shop on the website. So if you want your podcast swag, and you know you do, go to our website and click on the store tab.
We decided to record this episode on Wednesday of this week, which is a couple of hours after Donald Trump just made comments that women who have abortions should be punished.
So it's the 30th. It's April 30th, 2016.
I thought you were going to say that's the 30th dumb thing he said today.
Not incorrect.
But we figured we want to take a little bit of time to talk about politics and religion because there's so many issues that we don't necessarily get to bring up in the course of talking to people.
Yeah, we don't do a lot of
current events.
Yeah, current events.
Yeah, and we figured we can just hash out a few of these things now.
Sure, solve some problems.
Yes, exactly. And then the Democratic Party, I assume, will just take our suggestions and work them into the platform.
Or we're going to send this to the DNC.
Yes.
Yeah.
So here's my question, Jessica, for you. So Illinois, where we're from, we had our primary like a week or two ago.
Uh-huh.
Did you vote?
I sure did. I voted. It went great. My polling place is right next door. We do not get fucking stickers, and that is the bane of my existence. But I voted for Hillary.
Okay.
I'm a Hillary supporter through and through. How about you?
So I went. I voted for Bernie.
Yep.
But
are you going to mansplain some things to me?
I know. Here's what I don't get. What I don't get.
About?
I don't get the people who are Democrats and who want to vote for a Democrat who are saying Bernie or bust, or I'm Hillary and Bernie has nothing to offer. He has no chance, so I don't want to support him. I don't get that.
No, I completely agree with you. I maybe am being biased. Almost certainly I'm being biased. I feel like I see it a lot more from Bernie supporters of Hillary's a liar and Hillary's this and she's mainstream and part of the establishment, blah, 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 blah. And so fuck, if she doesn't, it's a lot of people are arguing that, and I get the argument of, well, if I'm not going to believe in the person I'm voting for, then I'm not going to vote, or I'm going to do, which is A, a crock of shit. B is, I think, really ignores the fact that, say Trump becomes the next president, or Cruz, God forbid, there's real consequences to those people. I think the Democrats are really lucky in that we have two extraordinarily qualified candidates.
Yeah. And by the way, we make no pretense here of trying to be, fair and balanced. No, there's clearly one side that's good for the issues we both care about, and the other side doesn't care at all.
Yes, absolutely.
Maybe there's another situation where maybe there's a Republican who you can maybe get on board with. I'm not for president, not this time around. So that we're just putting on, that's on the side.
Disclosure.
Yeah. The reason I liked Bernie for primary anyway is I'm like, you know what? I want to support him because I like that he's moving Hillary a little more to the left.
Oh, I know. I think he's...
And if it puts a scare in her, great. I still think she's going to win the nomination, and I'm going to be really happy to vote for her in November. I will say that I think The Stranger, a Seattle newspaper, alternative newspaper in Seattle, they issued their endorsement, and they said it's just the Democrat. We don't care. Either one is fine. It doesn't matter.
It feels like an embarrassment of riches at this point. Yeah, and I sincerely believe in both of these candidates. Honestly, I'm reflexively over Bernie because I'm really, really sick of him getting shoved down my throat, which
by people you know and people you see online and
stuff. I'm 30, but all of my friends are 20-something liberal white people who are super on the Bernie train, and good for them. And you know what else I like is that I like that Bernie, I think, has inspired an interest in politics that I think Obama did in 2008, maybe not so much in 2012. And so I like that. It just, I find it really disheartening, frankly. I might have said that already. I find it disheartening that, they are being pro-Bernie, but further, they're super anti-Hillary. And that doesn't feel productive to me. I think that there's an interesting, healthy debate to be had, but to
yeah, the stuff they hash out in the debates, good. I like that debate. Here's what I don't like about Hillary, which is that, she's been in here for a while. She's not the inspirational in the sense that she's going to move you when she talks. Like Obama did that. Bernie kind of does that. She doesn't. But she's very much of a pragmatic, like, I will hopefully make incremental change in the direction we kind of want to move in. And it's like, yeah, I mean, you will. Yeah. And that's a good thing. Whereas Bernie Sanders is like, I'm going to make these leaps and bounds to change politics. It's like, no, you're not. Because even if you get elected president,
you still have to deal with...
You have to deal with probably a House that's very much against you.
Right.
Even if you get the House and Senate, you're not going to have a filibuster-proof Senate.
No.
I don't know what he's going to get done that he wants to get done with these leaps and bounds. But he'll move in the same incremental direction, too.
Yeah. No, I really, really agree with you that I feel like the pragmatist in me is super pro Hillary because I think her being an insider, frankly, is a benefit that like she knows how to get shit done.
Right. And she knows these people and she probably knows what their buttons are. Whereas I just have this feeling that, Bernie's been in the Senate for a long while now and he's been in politics for a long time too. But not in the sense that he's been working on stuff that has gotten him any. It's not like he's passed big bills.
Yeah.
He's done a lot of amendments. He's gotten a lot of smaller things passed.
He's not swinging for the fences.
That's very good. Yeah, but I don't know that it's going to change much as his rhetoric suggests it would if he became president. But again, it's still, I don't think he's like a secret conservative.
No.
I'm not worried about that.
No.
So it's like, you know what? I'm not worried about the Supreme Court justices you will appoint. So fine, good.
I think that's
happy with the Democrats.
The biggest thing playing right now is like really looking at the bench and seeing like how many slots are we going to see filled in the next few years, and like how essential it is for what you and I believe in that those are filled by like at worst centrists, at best liberals.
Right. If like Merrick Garland is your worst case centrist nominee, like you're probably going to be okay. It seems like. So here's a question for you.
Okay.
Is Bernie Sanders? Do you think he's an atheist? Because I've heard a lot of talk about this. Every time they ask him about God,
he sort of brushes it off.
He sort of brushes it off. He says he's Jewish. I mean, that's the label he goes with all the time. But he seems to allude to the fact that he's very much culturally Jewish.
Right.
He's maybe a secular Jew. But he doesn't say he doesn't believe in God. I've not heard that coming out of his mouth. And by the way, I should point, I don't care.
No,
I don't care that Hillary's religious. That doesn't bother me at all because I'm not worried that she doesn't care about church-state separation. It's just one of those fascinating things that if he were non-religious, can you imagine that there is a chance we could have a non-religious president? That's amazing.
I think this is a really good example of, so say hypothetically, say Bernie is, and we'll come back to that question. I feel like you and I often got the question of like, would you vote for an atheist president or would you vote for somebody? And we both have the same like, it depends on what their platforms are.
Right.
And frankly, that's
nice, but it's not the end all be all of our vote.
Right. Because, and we've talked about this before, that generally we don't vote in lockstep or we don't all have the same opinions, but most of us swing left, certainly, and especially in liberal causes, or excuse me, social causes is the word I was looking for. But I think it's a good example. I do think he's an atheist, but I also really hesitate to like quote unquote out somebody or like try to
put a label on him that he doesn't feel fits. And I heard a lot of atheists do the same thing to President Obama. Same thing. He's secretly an atheist. He can't say it, but and it's like, no, I mean, he goes to church. Remember Reverend Wright? Like he goes to church. That was an issue because he goes to church. So yeah, you're right. It's partly unfair to say, I think I know what you really are. But it's one of those, the one thing I do appreciate about this election cycle for the Democrats is that they really have not tried to put religion on a sleeve, as in, you should vote for me because of my faith. Even Hillary, who is religious, it's not something she uses to win over people.
Yeah, Bernie reminds me a lot of the way my dad views religion. Hey, Dad, if you're listening, he listens sometimes. Did I tell you that?
My parents do not. I'm just surprised.
Yeah, they're driving to Florida. I told him he should listen. Anyway, my dad was raised Catholic, and when pressed, he's going to tell you like I think he says agnostic because nobody likes the A word, the other A word.
Yeah.
But he reminds me a lot of how like Bernie treats it. Like, do you believe in God? Well, I was raised Catholic, and kind of trails off and hope somebody changes the subject.
Well, Bernie can go into his stump speech about the 1%, so it's okay. We have somewhere to go with it.
1%. Oh, Jesus.
So here's another question then. On the flip side of this.
Should I be asking questions?
whatever. I'm just winging it. But on the flip side, when it comes to the 3 Republican candidates who are still standing, all 3 are at least outwardly religious. Who do you think for atheists would be, if they were president, who would be the worst for our issues, church-state separation and the like?
The worst... so obviously Trump is like a walking, talking nightmare, and nobody's debating that. I think that Cruz is worse because I think he stands behind his convictions.
Yeah.
I believe that in a lot of respects, Donald Trump is kind of saying what he thinks people want to hear.
Yes.
Which isn't great, and it really doesn't speak highly of like our populace that like somebody who's misogynistic and racist and xenophobic is like, hey, that's our guy. Finally, somebody's got...
Someone represents me.
Finally, somebody's saying what we're all thinking. Like, I wasn't thinking that, guys. Nobody was, right? And
no, they all were.
It really is
just not
shining
the
a
people you
light
talk
on, like,
to.
the people who are like, racism is a thing of the past. It's post-racial America. Oh, fuck you. Like, look at what's happening right now. Anyway.
So I agree with you. Ted Cruz really does believe this stuff.
Yes.
And by the way, it's worth pointing out.
And he's a Zodiac killer, so you gotta watch out for that.
He, yesterday night, as we're recording this, like Tuesday night this week, at a town hall meeting or something, someone in the audience actually asked him, what do you think about religion in government and stuff? Ted Cruz actually said that, no, he basically, without saying these words, said church-state separation is good and the Bill of Rights protects atheists. He used that word, atheist, as much as everybody else.
He didn't burst into flames when he said atheist.
He did not. But he also, what he didn't tell you is that he said, the Bill of Rights, freedom of religion for everybody, including people like atheists. But
I did a jerk-off motion for people listening.
Yeah. But what he didn't say is, like, when he was Solicitor General in Texas, he was the guy, get this, when there was a case years ago, maybe a decade ago, where they had 10 Commandments monument on the Texas state capitol. Ted Cruz was the guy in the Supreme Court defending that monument. And the Supreme Court agreed with him. And the reason they did is they said it's not promoting Christianity because there are a lot of displays at that Texas Capitol all about like the law. And so this 10 Commandments monument is one part of that. Overall, though, it's not promoting religion. That's why that can stand.
Were there like Muslim statues?
No, but
like
I think there were like
Hindi?
other historical lawgiver statues, whatever. But here's the thing. So Ted Cruz has been going around saying, like, I defend the 10 Commandments monument, etc. At the same time, when this past year in Oklahoma, they had a similar story. 10 Commandments monument in Oklahoma, but it was standalone. That's the only monument that was basically there. The Oklahoma Supreme Court struck it down. What did Ted Cruz do at that time? He said that it's like an example of Christian persecution. So it's
fuck that
he's
guy.
all for the Bill of Rights when it promotes Christianity. So you're right. Going back to what you said, Ted Cruz stands by this stuff. He's lived his entire life playing this religious persecution card, and he is a conservative Christian. There's no doubt about that. I agree. I'm most worried about him as far as it relates to these issues we care about.
I don't see Trump getting in the White House and like attacking Planned Parenthood I don't see Trump frankly, I don't see Trump in the White House, but like I think he is the kind of guy who wants to get into power and will say what he thinks he has to say to do it. And like this is the base he's decided he's going to gun for, so he's going to pander for days. He's going to get there and just sort of like just enjoy being in power and like glad handing people.
I think the thing I'm worried about is he's not going to do anything, but he's going to delegate some of these things to other, like, who are going to be the people being the decision makers on his behalf. And I fear that he's going to give it to the same religious right base.
Yeah, that's true.
So
I didn't think of that.
It's worrisome, but I feel like he could be swayed if you just get the right people in his sphere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, get someone who understands the Constitution, and they might sway him in the better direction. John Kasich.
I was just about to bring up John
Kasich.
Kasich.
Still in here. He is religious. He talks about his faith nonstop. He tries to toe that moderate line.
He has... I think John Kasich is another nightmare human. I saw what he did to women's health in Ohio, and like, fuck that noise.
Gutted Planned Parenthood, or wants to at least.
On this podcast, I swear a lot. I do.
That's
anyway,
right. According to the feedback, no one cares.
Thanks, guys. But anyway, he's a nightmare person when it comes to women's health, obviously. But I will give him his due. Like, whoever his campaign manager took a step back and said, like, these guys are nut jobs. I'm going to run to the center. And, like, he's portrayed himself as, like, the moderate, sane candidate. And with due respect to him, compared to Ted Cruz and Donald Trump and Ben Carson and Ted Cruz,
Mike Huckabee and all those other people.
Marco Rubio. He seems like a sane, reasonable person. Mm-hmm. He hasn't gunned down on, like, I got a Planned Parenthood. Like, that's not what he's running on. He's running on, like, I'm not those guys, which is a genius move.
So let's suppose somehow he found a way to get the nomination. When you put him in... Yeah. If you put him in front of Hillary Clinton and or Bernie Sanders or whatever,
tear him apart.
Now he's no longer the centrist, moderate, anything.
I think they would call him out hard on what he's done. Like, really examine his record and said, like, look what you've done to women. And obviously that's, like, my number one issue is, like, women's health care in Ohio. Not in Ohio, but
right.
They can bring that front and center and be like, this is the consequence.
If he does for the nation what he did in Ohio, that's a problem.
Right. And did he fuck up the schools? I should have done more research for you.
Everyone fucks up the schools all the time, everywhere.
Yeah, I don't know, but he's that sad little man. Have you seen, like, when he found out he won Ohio, and it was like him in a room with like 12 people, and he was like, "Yay!" And I'm like, "Oh, guy." So
you feel bad. You feel happy for him until you realize, that's still
awful
sad.
People. They're all awful.
Okay, so, go ahead.
I was going to say my shining moment so far is when Donald Trump tried to quote the Bible, and he quoted it wrong. When he said it's supposed to be 2 Corinthians, he's like, when I read 2 Corinthians, and I'm like, I even know that's bullshit.
Well, we've talked about this with some of the guests, too, which is that Donald Trump tries to play the I'm one of you card with every demographic you could think of. I'm the best for women
or brown people.
But he's the best at women's issues because he said so.
Fuck that guy.
He loves Muslims because he said so. But that's the thing. He talks about how he's like this great Christian. He loves the Bible even more than his own book. And it's very apparent to anyone, you would think, that he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Which, again, if he just said, you know what, I'm Christian, but I don't really... I'm not here to be your pastor, but he would lose his base. He doesn't want to lose his base, so he panders. And what I don't get is, how are people buying it? Because evangelicals like this guy.
Yeah.
He is totally not one of them, but they like him.
Did you hear, there was an episode of This American Life when some conservative radio host in maybe the South or something like that, big Ted Cruz supporter, like, funded for him, and he has like a Rush Limbaugh-esque talk radio show, but people call in, and he realized all of his listeners were Trump supporters, and he was so appalled by it, of like, I thought I knew you people, and like, we have nothing in common, but man, I don't know if it's like a dog whistle that he's doing, but... Yeah.
And even the New York Times this week, I think they had a whole article about how conservative talk radio hosts, yes, they're losing the base, they don't get what's going on, they're all heading in different directions, and they don't have influence. They're trying to say what that guy was saying, which is, how do you guys not see that Ted Cruz is one of us?
Right.
And
which he
Donald
is.
Trump is not.
Right.
But you're right. All the callers calling in are like, no, we love Trump.
Did you see Lindsey Graham on The Daily Show?
I did. He was...
Oh my God.
There's another example of someone...
It was so fucking funny.
There's another example of someone who I love watching him right now. I like listening to him when he does interviews.
He's a dangerous candidate.
But he would be a dangerous candidate too if he had any chance, like way back when, at winning. But now that he's out of the race... Same thing, by the way. I watched a ton of MSNBC. Michael Steele, I love listening to him now. He's amusing to me now.
Yeah.
But when he was in power, holy crap.
I felt that about Newt Gingrich in 2012. Like, when he was in the race, I was like, this guy is awful. And then he got out.
Because they were going after his personal life and everything.
But, like, when he got out of the race, I'm like, oh, you're like a fuddy-duddy old grandpa.
Yeah, and now he's back to
talking about
now
ladies.
He's back to being the Trump backer.
Yeah, but the thing that's happening that it's... do you think the GOP is going to, like, render itself in half? Like, what's their next step as the GOP?
If you're the Republican, if Trump wins the nomination, the nomination,
you have to do some real introspection there.
If he doesn't, and you alienate that whole base,
the damage is done.
I hope. But here's the thing: they're still going to be in power for some time, unless there's something ridiculous happens. They're still going to be in power, and they have another few years to get themselves back together into a party. I don't know that they're going to like disintegrate the way some people think they will.
I don't think they'll disintegrate, but they really have to like look at themselves in the mirror, and because they say like, how did this happen? How did Trump happen? And like clearly
look in the mirror.
Yeah, like clearly this rhetoric of xenophobia and anti-woman language and all this, like, it's coming back to bite you. And like this is it. It's personified.
I'm waiting for Donald Trump now to say gay marriage is wrong, which he alluded to. But like, let's make it an issue like they did now. Like, hey, Donald Trump, would you punish gay couples who want to get married? Whatever. Make all these social issues. Republicans are hoping those are not issues.
Bullshit.
The abortion thing that happened today is devastating to them because they don't want to talk about it.
Well, it's, God, where did I read it? Somewhere that, like, he's saying all the things that they've just been implying and inferring, and he's, like, saying them, and they're like, dude, be cool. For, like, a second, be cool. Because he's tipping their cards.
Right.
Metaphors.
But you're right. Let me change the subject in the time we have left,
I'm
which
yelling
is to
so
say,
much about Trump.
I know there will always be time to. We'll just make this a weekly thing. What stupid shit did Donald Trump say today? Here's another question. In terms of atheists running for office, because this is a big question every time, even in every other year. So we spoke earlier with candidates who are running for office. Now, here's the problem. Right now, as it stands, there are no atheists in Congress. Zero.
Are you announcing your candidacy?
I am so not. There are no atheists in Congress. But I don't know if you know this yet. There are a number of people who have legitimate shots at getting into Congress. And just to give a brief history here of the past decade or so, at maybe 10 years ago, there were no public open atheists in Congress. Sometime in the mid-2000s, Pete Stark, a Democrat from California in the House, he, after the Secular Coalition for America, sent out a questionnaire saying, do any of you, not believe in God? He's like, oh, I don't. He calls himself a Unitarian, but he said, no, I don't believe in God. They're like, can we tell people that? He said, yeah, I didn't know that was a big deal. No, it's a huge deal. So they did. And all of a sudden, he became the only person in Congress who openly didn't believe in God. And he won re-election once or twice, and then he lost, but it wasn't because he was an atheist. It was for other reasons. After he left a few years ago, or got voted out, there's nobody who's an open atheist. So that's where we stand right now. 535 members of Congress, 0 atheists. But right now, we have left anyway. In Arizona, get this, there are 4 people running in Arizona for positions in the state government who are in Arizona running for office in the state as open atheists.
Really?
Yeah. So one of them is Kara Pryor. Another one is Athena Salmon. We'll have links to them in the show notes. You could check them out. They're both running for the state house. Kara Pryor's husband, Scott Pryor, is running for the state senate. And the one guy in Arizona, Juan Mendez, who has been in the Arizona House for a few years now as an open atheist. He's been in the news a couple times because he tries to deliver godless invocations.
Oh, yeah,
and it always blows up somehow.
Love
people
it.
Get mad. He is in the House now. He's running for state senate as well. So maybe he'll get there. All of a sudden, you have another state senator who's an atheist. There are not many of those. So Arizona is like a hotbed of people running for office who are not religious. But here's the big one. And this is important because I don't know how many of our listeners know this one. In Maryland right now, running for Congress, is Jamie Raskin, who is he's running for the U.S. House. He was a state senator for several years in Maryland. If you ever look him up online or something, one of the things he's known for is saying during, maybe it was a gay marriage debate or something way back when, but he got on the floor of the state senate and said something, I'm paraphrasing here, I put my hand on the Bible and swore an oath to uphold the Constitution. I did not put my hand on the Constitution and swore to uphold the Bible. That's all. He wasn't the first person to say that, by the way, but that was awesome.
That's still a pithy phrase.
He has not, I've never heard him use the word atheist. I've never actually heard him say, I don't believe in God.
Yeah.
But he's sending out all those dog whistles, if you will, to non-religious people saying, I'm one of you. The American Humanist Association has tweeted out stuff that, no, he's supporting, they're not endorsing him, obviously, but they said, no, he said stuff to this extent. There is an atheist PAC that has sent him money as well. So this is a guy who could, maybe he's withholding, he's trying not to talk about it, which is smart, but he is well known as a politician in the state. His primary is at the end of April, but he's one of those people that looks like he may actually win that primary, and he has a very good shot in a Democratic area to get that seat as well. That would be huge if he actually won a seat, because all of a sudden we'd be up to 1.
Increased by 100%.
I know. Well, more than that, apparently, if it's from 0. Yeah, the math, I swear, works out. But, like, yeah, that would be a huge deal. But that's the thing. I can name you names of people who are running as atheists. If we're talking openly Christian, openly Jewish, there's too many to name.
Right.
And so
openly Christian.
I know. It's one of those and it's funny because Christians always talk about how their power is going away. Secular Americans are taking over this place. It's like, tell you what, if you really feel that way, how about you give up all the seats you have in Congress of people who are openly religious and we'll swap out. And no, they won't do that.
Would you ever run for office?
No.
Why?
Why?
I don't know. Change things? Help the community?
Don't want to help.
You would much rather
I would not be good. You know, we talk about like how all the politicians who are good at being politicians, they hold everything in. Yeah. Like I don't
You've got 10 years worth of blogs.
Oh my God, do you know how much shit they would find in that stuff?
I just thought of some of the shit I've written. Ooh, girl.
They would play this podcast right now as their ads against you.
Hey, future Americans. My name is Jessica, and I'm going to be your next governor.
And now you're arrested because it's Illinois.
Yeah, I don't know. What I'm really interested also about what's upcoming is what's going to happen kind of down ballot. Because
You mean House and Senate seats or like statewide offices?
Everything, like down to like really local elections. Just because I'm wondering what's going on with the GOP right now. Is that going to drive people to the polls, or hopefully will it drive them away from the polls?
Yeah, I mean, if Trump
keep them from voting in local
if Trump
shit.
is their nominee for president, you have to wonder how many of those down ticket people are going to be like, yeah, vote for me. I'm a Republican, but I don't like the guy running for president who's a standard bearer. That'll be interesting to see how many Republicans run away from the guy.
Yeah.
And because, I don't know, he's doing more. I heard it said somewhere, but like Trump is doing more damage to the party than Democrats have in decades.
Oh, absolutely.
Everything they've tried hasn't worked, but Trump gets in there and pretends to be one of them, and it's working.
Well, all 3 of the current candidates, I think, have backed away from, because you know how they did that pledge of like,
I will support whoever the nominee is.
They're all running away from that as fast as they can. I don't know. I'm really curious. Like, do you think? So I feel like we saw this in 2012, right? Like it was pretty contentious. This first, this time of 2012 was super contentious and a lot of mudslinging. And then when push come to shove, they all sort of rallied behind Romney.
Sure.
Do you think that will happen with? Because okay, so Trump, obviously nobody likes. Cruz, oh my God, everybody hates that guy.
Right, everyone who knows him hates him.
Hates him, just personally.
Yeah, I didn't read his book. Who did? But he wrote an autobiography that came out like in the past year or something. The whole opening chapter or the introduction is how like one of my first days in the Senate, we had a meeting with the Republican senators and they said, you need to vote for this bill. And I stood up and said, I can't do that. Like, you're all sellouts. I'm the one pure conservative guy. Basically, he's trashing all of his colleagues in the opening pages of his book.
Really?
Yeah. And then it's like, I wonder why like one senator is endorsing him, no one else. Which is going to be hilarious because at some point they need to say something.
Well, and everything's on the record. Like the Lindsey Graham thing.
Yeah.
2 months ago, he said, what did he say? If somebody shot Cruz on the floor of the Senate and the Senate was the jury, you still wouldn't get a conviction.
Yeah.
Because, and now he's like, yeah, I'm super supporting Ted Cruz. And they're literally playing that shit back to him. And he's like, smiley shrug.
Politics.
I know. Politics so hard.
Right.
Oh, my God. Yeah. It's going to be a mess.
It'll be a mess either way.
But I think it's drawing the right, like, as much as I hate it and as much as I couldn't, I mean, the damage that a Cruz presidency would do to, like, again, the issues that you and I care about, which are...
And again, how would he do that? Not just through like executive. I don't really think he's just going to magically repeal everything in Obamacare on day one. But again, like you said, he could appoint Supreme Court justices like Scalia, which he wants to.
Yeah.
And with a Republican Senate, he could do that. Mm-hmm. Like, how is that not the biggest fear for a lot of progressive people out there?
But, like, I think that this is putting, forgive the phrase, the fear of God in a lot of, like, left-leaning people. And even people who are, like, centrist or on the right and are just looking at this like, whoa, this isn't what I signed up for.
Right.
Like,
I'm a Republican, but not like that kind of Republican.
Not one of those Republicans.
Right. I mean, I hope that's the case. I fear that there's way too much apathy, and people are just like, it was the same stuff in every election. My vote doesn't count. I don't like any of these candidates, so I'm not going to vote. It's like, are you going to be happy with, like, a Cruz presidency?
Yeah.
Why would you not vote? Why would you not vote for a Democrat if you care about these issues? I don't care what hangups you have about Hillary Clinton or Bernie. Like, even if you have qualms, and believe me, I've heard a lot of criticism against both of them, and I agree with the criticism on both of them.
Nobody's perfect. There's no
not
perfect
even
candidate.
Close. But how could you not see that there is a marked difference between, like, a Democrat with those two in office versus any of the ones on the right?
Well, there's a lot of people who do that, like, oh, all the parties are the same, they're all corrupt, blah, blah, blah. And it's I get why you would think that, but
false equivalency, like, oh, no,
not.
both parties are the same. They're not. They're not even close. Yes, they're politicians, and they pander, and they hide their true view. Yeah, that's how the game works.
Yeah.
But their
and that's not
views
good, but, like, that's what we have right now.
But there is a difference in how they would run. I don't, maybe it was in the Onion or something, like, all of a sudden Barack Obama's approval ratings are way up now. Yeah. And maybe part of that is because they see, like, oh, these are the people who are going to replace you.
The best
Man,
the GOP
you guys
could shovel up.
Right. This is the best you have to offer. Yeah. And what's funny, too, speaking of which, if you had someone with Hillary Clinton's resume running on the right, oh my goodness, there would be no contest here. They would all be behind it, and all of the little, whatever, the email issue, the she's corrupt, whatever, they would get over that real fast.
Right, quick.
And talk about real issues.
I mean, look what they're willing to overcome for Trump. Like, the guy's a mess.
Right.
I don't know. I will say this, and say what you about Hillary, and like you said, like, there's criticisms to be made, and they're valid. When I went in to vote for the primary, and I, like, got to vote for a woman for the first time, that was pretty fucking cool. Yeah,
and it'll be cool this November, too, for me, if she gets a nomination, which it looks like she will.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a neat thing, and it's one of those things, like, it's not something I think about when I think about Hillary Clinton winning, like, the nomination or the White House.
I think about it all the time.
Like, I don't. I just think she'd be a better candidate. But, yeah, that's a huge deal. Like, that's a neat change. And the Republicans love to talk about the diversity of, Ted Cruz would be a Latino president or whatever. I don't know. I wouldn't feel proud of that one.
What a stupid man. His dumb face. Have you read? They've written papers about why his face is so off-putting. And I don't like to make fun of people's looks. But that said, there was literally a paper like, why everybody thinks Ted Cruz is so uncomfortable to look with, and it's because his face doesn't work right. It's basically what it came down to. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Yeah. I think we should do this again after the primaries are over?
Because there'll be a million other things.
I'm not driving back out to Aurora to yell about Ted Cruz again.
You will. Just wait.
I have things to do with my life.
Just wait. Not when he wins the White House, you won't.
Jesus Christ. Why would you even say that? That's not funny. That's not funny. I have a uterus. I need to fucking take care of it, and I cannot do that.
No, once Ted Cruz is in office, no women will be allowed to have uteruses.
Oh, he can have mine and see how he likes it.
There you go.
Jesus.
All right, okay. So we'll continue this later.
Super productive.
If you want to share your thoughts on this, comment when we post this.
Yeah, comment, shoot us emails. We've been getting a ton of emails this last week.
Yeah, people listened to like the 100th episode and sent us emails, and they were really nice.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Or really mean, but that's okay. We like those comments too.
Well, sometimes. You do. You don't send those to me.
I don't send those to you.
I've been like elated all week because we never get I never get emails. And
no, we get only a few emails usually.
Yeah,
people listen, but they don't usually comment because that's not. We didn't ask for it. But I am curious if they, if they want us to talk about this, because who gives a shit what we think about anything?
Nobody.
But two, like, hey, if this is worthwhile, we'll do it again in the future.
Yeah, and also, don't yell at me about Hillary Clinton. I know. I still like her. Fuck off. But also, I do read the comments, and hey, woman who is being a bitch about me in the comments, shut up. Jesus Christ. Get a life.
That was me. I was posing. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Is that it? We're done?
That's it.
All right. Bye, guys. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the podcast for FriendlyAtheist.com. This episode was taped at Cinnamon Sound Studios in Aurora, Illinois, and the music was written and performed by Brad Chagdis. If you like what you're hearing, please consider making a contribution at patreon.com/Hemant, that's He-Man-T. We appreciate your support. I'm Hemant Mehta.
And I'm Jessica Blumke. We hope you'll join us next time.